Good morning everyone and welcome to this video. In the last video we saw the basic application building block. Now we can ask the question, how can we use these components? In a project where we have imported this Ionics component library, there are different ways of importing, as you will also discover in this course. So in a project where we import this library, we have access to this Ionic core. We use them as normal HTML elements. Now it's very important to understand that if you have never worked with web components before, the term could be or will be very new to you and you may not know how to use them. In fact, you just need to add them with their tags in your HTML code, in the places where you want to use them, just like for the classic HTML elements. Here is an example. That would be the Ion button, essentially a button provided by Ionic that wraps a normal native HTML button and then adds some additional styling to it, which is also important. These web components are not only about pre-style elements, they also add JavaScript logic to them, or at least they often can. And then this button can be configured here. It can be given attributes, just like you can set attributes on normal HTML elements. But of course, the attributes that you can set here, the property that you can set on this button also depend on the web component that you are using. Because everything you can set here, like fill, which defines the button style. These are settings that you can configure, and the official documents are the perfect place to find out what attributes and properties you can set on these web components. So we use it as a normal HTML element. It supports attributes and properties, and these elements can also emit events. It's also very interesting. In fact, you also emit client events that you can listen to, for example, a special ion change event for some drop-down menus, and we will see some of these events throughout the course. Now, a button that I mentioned is ultimately a combination of three main engines of the web development front end. It contains HTML code, and here we have the normal HTML elements supported. And in the end, all web components are made up of these HTML elements. It's basically a pre-structured piece of HTML code. However, we don't just have HTML code. We also have CSS styling, and here you see something special for the value, for the color, for what is different. This is a CSS variable that facilitates the styling of this web component from the outside and the application of a general theme. We will dive into that more closely in the style and theme of the course. But as I mentioned, a web component is not just a combination of HTML and CSS. We also have a JavaScript port that adds some functionality to that component, that exposes properties that can be set, that controls the element of that type that we can set. The color or the fill mode of this button. So all of that is controlled by JavaScript, and all of that is wrapped together and encapsulated in a JavaScript object that you can add, and we can add to the home HTML code with this Ionics button selector. Now in our process, this also uses a technique called shadow, DOM, and CSS variables, which helps encapsulate the styles of this component so that the style applied to the elements of this component doesn't spill over to your application or indeed to others. In addition, Ionic web components automatically load all the necessary polyfill to make them work on all the browser by automatically filling in all the required information. This video is coming to an end.